Hi, hello everybody. My name is Erik Lundberg. I'm the fiction editor here at Epigram Books in Singapore. And I have the great honor and pleasure today to be talking to Ning Cai, who is the author of one of our young adult series about her latest book. So very glad to have you here, Ning. I know you're here from Switzerland, from very far away.
But thank you, Jason and Team Epigram Books for having me here. It's so nice to be back.
Yeah. We're very glad to have you here, and very glad that you're back for a bit, so we can see you. So we're going to talk about Ning's latest book today.
No.
So Metamorphosis, and I'm just going to give a quick author bio. You probably already know who she is, but just a quick bio just to kind of list some things that are relevant to what we're talking about today. So the recipient of the prestigious Arts Scholarship from the National Arts Council, Ning Cai is a graduate of the University of Edinburgh with a master's with distinction in creative writing. She's worn many hats: stage illusionist, escape artist, mentalist, documentary show presenter, TEDx speaker, creative director, and last but certainly not least, author. Her Savant Trilogy is a YA crime series, starting with Misdirection, which was longlisted for the 2016 Epigram Books Fiction Prize and spent 6 weeks on the Straits Times bestsellers list. The series continues with Manipulation and concludes with Metamorphosis, and it's the latter book we're here to discuss today. She's also the author or co-author of 4 other titles, including the Singapore Literature Prize shortlisted memoir, Who is Magic Babe Ning? So Ning, welcome again. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Jason. That was such a glowing thing. I'm actually blushing under my mask right now.
Well, it's all true. Okay. So like I said, we're going to be talking about this third book in this trilogy. So Metamorphosis itself is both telling its own compelling story, and it's also wrapping up the entire trilogy, the entire Savant Trilogy. So how does it feel to finish up this big, overarching story that you've been living with since earlier than 2016? So 2016 was when you sent it to us for EBFP.
Yes, that's right.
But even longer than that, since you...
Yeah, because the first book was long listed for the 2016 Epigram Books Fiction Prize. And Jason, you're right, because I just remembered that yes, I submitted a manuscript that was very, very different from the original, from this trilogy. It was just like a really short, basically we had like protagonist who was like very young, it's like about 15, and it wasn't so fleshed out. So it was.
Well, it was also it was a complete story. Like it ended at the end of that book, and we persuaded you to try and turn it into a trilogy.
That's true.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm a bit jet-lagged still. You can tell. Yeah, so that was in 2015, and then that was longlisted for the 2016 Epigram Books Prize. And then I met Jason and Edmund, and they offered me like a 3-book deal. So I had to sit down to like plan out the entire story arc, and how things change and evolve, how to start and end each book. And then now here we are. It's been so many years, and I feel like really relieved that, I birthed the last baby. And I'm just really heartened by all the great feedback I've received from readers, especially young readers who said that they really love how kick-ass Maxine Schooling is as a protagonist, because this is essentially a story where the princess saves herself at the end of the day. And I also had some young readers saying that they were inspired to even try writing their own books. So
that's fantastic.
Do it.
Yeah. That's great. It's always great to encourage the young writers so we can get some new voices as well. So,
and then maybe you can also enter the Epigram Books Fiction Prize next year.
So then, like, how have things kind of changed in terms of your writing process then? Kind of, because like as you said, the first book was quite different. Even the character names were different. I was looking over like our old emails just to prepare for this, and the character names were very different. Some of the relationships were different as well. So how do you think your approach to these characters and approach to the story has changed throughout kind of working on these 3 books?
Yeah, so the initial idea, because it was basically a manuscript that I wrote, and I kept it in a drawer. I forgot all about it until my best friend, she poked me and she was like, Ning, Epigram has this annual writing competition. Why don't you just submit that story, because she knew about it? And I was like, I don't know. So anyway, that original manuscript was like more like middle grade, whereas this is YA. Yeah, so initially it wasn't Maxine Schooling, who was 18 years old, stuck in a coma. It was, her name was Vivian, named after my mom.
Right.
And she was like just 15 years old. But then you need to have a very good editor who convinces you that, because of crime and stuff, you should like bump up the age of the protagonist to 18. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Because
especially murders. So there's,
especially gory murders. Yeah. And because she became 18, I could have more leeway on like the descriptive scenes, the crime scenes, and stuff like that. So yeah, that really helped.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So without spoiling anything, I will say that though the previous books have touched on Maxine's personal mystery, in addition to the more urgent criminal investigations that she and her friends are actually helping with in the first 2 books. This final book in the trilogy focuses much more on discovering the identity of the person who killed her parents and her brother. Mm-hmm. So it's a person she calls the Man in the Mask.
That's right.
So we talked a little bit about some of this already. So like initially when you sent the manuscript of book 1 to us for the competition, the killer was actually revealed at the end of that book.
Yeah.
But, cruel editor that I am, I made you push that to the end of book 3. So it became, there were more self-contained mysteries within each book. Mm-hmm. And usually these were the crimes that Max and her friends are helping the CID with.
Exactly.
But there's this overarching mystery of who killed her family.
Yeah.
And trying to come to, not just come to terms with it, but try to get to the bottom of what happened, so that she can, have some justice for her family, but also have some closure with the experience as well. So what was it like to delay this for so long, and how satisfying is it now to kind of reveal the killer at the end of this book? And we're not going to say who it is.
Yeah, it's a great question, because writing for 1 book is so different from writing for 3. So yes, the original plan was just like a 1 book thing, but when Edmund and Jason came to me with like, okay, Ning, we're going to give you this like chance to do a trilogy, are you interested? And I was like, hell yeah, I'm going to take up the challenge. And so it took a few months, because I had to sit down and plot everything. And of course, the whole writing process is like you can strategize, you can plan, but things change because, well, in a sense, you kind of play God to a certain extent as a writer. Your characters evolve by themselves, and you have to allow them the space, to grow, and sometimes you realize they're not exactly how you thought they would be. So it was a very interesting process. And one thing I also realized was because the first book was written before I received the NEC Art Scholarship and I went to the UK.
Right.
So I think my voice as an author shifted as well, and it changed. So it was actually quite a nice shift because I was told that, you could feel Maxine growing more mature and sure in her voice as you follow the trilogy, as you go down the book. So yeah, it all worked out.
It's like her maturity almost matches kind of your maturity as a writer, I guess, has been going through these.
This is an ongoing evolution.
Yeah, that's the thing. When we were working on this and kind of outlining and kind of finding all the story beats and things, we had a good idea. It was kind of a good roadmap. But then, as you say, things would change. And we just would have to kind of go with it. And just make sure it kind of is still, not wraps up so neatly, but that it, is still following a good path that the reader can go down.
Yeah, and I guess also because I wasn't sure with YA, would there be some, kind of red tape for certain aspects of things. And I was glad that you were very encouraging and open for me to explore those boundaries.
Yeah. Well, kind of to just dovetail on that, I have another question that's kind of like that.
Okay.
But just in terms of YA, that for a long time, YA in Singapore has been a younger kind of YA. So it's been focused on younger readers. And even though it's in the rest of the world, it tends to be a little bit older, like kind of mid-teenager to even older teenagers as well. So how did you feel about that, about kind of trying to push those boundaries a bit? Because we almost kind of established like a senior young adult category for these books. So how did you feel actually trying to push those boundaries?
It was pretty exciting because I mean, when I was in the UK, I was educated with the whole like non-binary thing, and it was very cool because in my campus there was like a dedicated loo for trans people, for those who identify as non-binary, and I felt like I actually had an idea to insert a brand new character who's non-binary in the YA series, and I asked... In book two, that's right. So I asked Jason, what do you think? Because, in Singapore it's still kind of new. It's not really talked about. But, on an international level, it is something that, you can't just keep quiet about because it's real,
Well, and there are non-binary people here in Singapore,
exactly.
so
So I wanted to give them a voice, and so Sunyata, aka Sunny, was born. Yeah,
it's also kind of a kick-ass character as well. So.
They are, yes.
In a different way from Max, but yeah.
Yeah, and they complement each other very well. In fact, I think Sunny is one of my favorite characters in the trilogy. So no spoilers, but Sunny is a hacker who's a very good friend of Max, and they really helped her in a lot of fixes.
Yeah. Well, it's actually her Max's best friend, CK. Actually is friends with him first, so they knew each other online, and then comes to help them with some investigations and stuff later. So
editor remembers. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I think in terms of representation, in terms of tone, also in terms of kind of the subject matter as well, because these books are all murder mysteries too. So in books 1 and 2 especially, we're dealing with serial killers, not just with murders, but serial killers too. So that kind of ups the kind of the level of what we're looking at in terms of young adult.
And to keep things interesting, they always say like write what you know. So I was sharing with Jason that I met this really interesting hacker when I was in the UK. So I took a train to Glasgow to meet Paul R. Wilson, who's been to DEF CON, this convention from the hackers, and
which you mentioned in the book.
So he was sharing about like how he had friends who like hacked the casino through the aquarium's thermometer and stuff because it wasn't...
Well, the aquarium had Wi-Fi, right?
The Wi-Fi wasn't secured for that, and it's just like mind-blowing. So I put some bits, I was inspired to put it in my story.
Well, too, kind of drawing on your own life. So for the first book, a lot of the crimes are stage magic related as well. And so and we had that discussion of, okay, is that going to carry through all 3 books? And we found that it would be kind of gimmicky if we kept doing it that way. So in the second book, yes, less is more. So, and in the second book, there is a supposed vampire who's killing people as well. There's more reports of this person who looks like a vampire who's killing people too. So we've got kind of a different thing going on there. But in this third book, it's a little bit different because it's focused more, much more on Max's story.
Yeah, her internal story.
Yeah, and trying to kind of solve the mystery of who basically destroyed her life. Yeah. So, so one thing that's interesting to me is it's not just about these crimes, but all these books are very much about family as well. So even before the first book starts, kind of off the page, her parents and her little brother have been killed. So there's already this loss of family at the beginning, but kind of throughout the books, it's really interesting to see her accruing all these people into her orbit. So it starts with her best friend, with CK, his father, the people on the police force. And then you just say Sunny comes in as well, and so kind of this whole group of people. It's almost like a Scooby gang. kind of comes in.
Mystery machine.
Yes. To not just to solve these crimes, but to be there for each other as well. So what do you think you're trying to say in these books about found family?
Yeah. So the constant theme for all 3 books really is like friends are the family that you choose. So we have this 18-year-old who wakes up and she realizes she's suddenly orphaned, and the closest kin she has is her aunt, Aunt Teresa, and her cousin John, and her friends. So they always say that the 5 people closest to you are like, you kind of take on their characteristics and their personalities and stuff. So she surrounds herself with like really good people, and it's like a very tight team. So yeah, I kind of like your reference with the Scooby-Doo gang.
Yeah.
Because everybody has different personalities and strengths, and they come together, and then everyone's stronger in that sense.
Yeah. Well, they all complement each other.
Yeah, and it helped make her stronger as well. And because what she went through was so traumatic. I mean, there was also a lot of focus on like PTSD, and in book 2, she actually went for therapy to help with things, and her anxiety is very real. So yeah, friendship is really like what helped make her better. Yeah.
It's interesting too that you mentioned that, because like the first book, it seemed to be more about the physical healing, because as you say, she was also assaulted during this attack that killed her family as well.
Because basically it's called the Savant Trilogy because there are 2 types of savants. Acquired savants are people who have head injuries, and then you suddenly develop like a talent. Like some people can do math really well, or they become like a very good virtuoso on the piano. Hers, for Maxine, she has this like picture perfect memory. But some people are just savants by birth, so that's why we decided to call it the Savant Trilogy.
Right. So because of this, she develops this talent. Yeah. It's this eidetic memory that she can it's a photographic memory. She can remember very detailed things. But what's interesting is that the first book, to me anyway, is about kind of her physical healing through what has happened to her. And then in the second book, it's very much about the emotional and mental healing that she's doing too. So she's in an interesting place at the beginning of book 3 because she has started to come to terms with a lot of these things that she's been dealing with for a long time. And also still trying to get over what happened as well. And so it's just in that moment that she's in a pretty good place in that moment, and that's the moment when kind of it all goes to hell again.
Yes.
So
it's like the calm before the storm.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a ride for her, and I had a lot of people writing in like, Ning, when is like the next book coming out? And then COVID happened, and we all know what happened. So I'm just glad that both books came out last year.
Yeah, which was a feat in itself, trying to put out 2 books in 1 year.
While being a new mom.
yes, exactly. Which has so many of its challenges already. So
yeah, it was quite a challenge, like writing while taking care of like a new baby. So.
Yeah. So I think we've got time for probably just one more question here. So I did want to ask you, I mean, I know that you're still kind of recovering from finishing these books, having them published last year, and then kind of getting them out there into the world so people can read them now. So I know that takes some recovery time. I'm a writer myself, so I have that as well, that you really don't need to kind of decompress from that experience.
Yeah.
So are there things, though, that you're thinking about kind of maybe what to do next?
Well,
maybe that you're not working on yet, but some ideas what you might do next.
Yeah, I guess I've always been very, very inspired by my friend and mentor, Neil Gaiman, who very kindly provided quotes for the books.
He's my favorite author.
So, he doesn't pigeonhole himself, on like one particular genre or platform even. And I think I want to just be daring and brave like him and explore and challenge myself, try out new things, and we'll see how it goes.
Well, I know you just had a short piece come out in an anthology, right?
Oh, yes. So basically, Felix Chong, who's a local poet and author, he approached me last year to come, and contribute a piece for this new book of his called A Letter to My Partner. So I decided to try my hand at poetry and came up with like an 8-page kind of like long, flowy, rambling free verse. And so that's out. That book's out now if you want to check it out. It's available directly from Marshall Cavendish or at all good bookshops.
Yeah, that's kind of scary too, going from one genre to another. So going from prose to poetry.
Yeah, it's such a different, yeah, it's just so different writing a novel versus like poetry, and yeah, it's just interesting to like shift your brain cells into like to try something else that's new.
Right, right.
I'm loving the challenge, and I think right now it's just like I just kind of need a break. Yeah.
Yeah, we've all had a lot of stuff going on, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, well, great. Well, thank you again, Ning, for being here.
Thank you.
I do want to mention, here, I'll hold this up. So, Metamorphosis, and actually all 3 books in the Savant Trilogy, they're available at epigrambookshop.sg, as well as fine bookstores all over Singapore. So, please get your copies and read these fantastic books. So, thank you again, Ning, for being here.
And thank you so much for having me.